Welcome to the Hunter's Campfire. G'day, my name is Mark van den Bogart, hunter, fisherman, writer and storyteller. With me is Ian Hurley, technologist, hunter, hunting mentor and proud father. Together we want to help you get hunting. Our focus is helping you make the most of public land hunting right here in Australia, even if you don't live in a state where it's offered. This podcast series is all about helping you get started, helping you build your knowledge and your confidence so you can get out there and live your own hunting adventures. Now, let's get started.
Good evening, fellas. Welcome to the Hunter's Campfire podcast. And hopefully, if I get the editing right at the end of this, it'll be our first podcast for 2022. So, Mark and Chris, thanks for joining us tonight.
It's great to be. But hang on, I'm always here. It's great to be here anyway. So, and it's great to have Chris here as our first one of 2022. What is it? It's like January the 5th or something.
The 5th, yes.
We're keen, that's for sure.
So yes, 2022. Lots of new things on the horizon. Mark, what have you got planned for early 22?
I have actually have a list here of the 20 jobs I have completed on our staycation. One of them was to paint the office and to actually finish off the walls and that wall too, which I can't show you, but I've got the fallow and red, and I've also got my about a 4 foot long green sawfish rostrum, you know, the big bill with all the spikes on it. Finally got that up on the wall. Dinosaur. They'll be gone soon, so I've got that up on the wall. Other than that, the next, so I hunted right up to Christmas. And
you had a successful hunt right up.
Yes, I did. Yep. Got one just before Christmas. That was a hard, hot carry out, I tell you. It was. It was a weird morning. It's like, it was cool for some bizarre reason. I got there, heated up pretty quick, and that change in, that from cool to hot brought in a bit of mist, and I decided to go into the heavy bush block on this particular property and spotted a red in there, and I got it, and in one of the shots you can actually still see the mist above me. It's not cold mist, it's humidity, and it was a tough haul out too. I think I got there at 4:30. I think I shot it at 6:30
a.m.
Yeah, a.m. Because I try to beat the light, so I try to get up before first light. So it's about 4:30 now. Shot at 6:30, and I think I was in the local town having a coffee at 9.
It doesn't sound so bad, mate.
No.
That sounds great.
4.5 hours, of strenuous exercise before 9 o'clock. But anyway, got it done. And then, and as you well know, as we have been discussing, is Pillager.
Yes.
Where Steely and I are heading down the last week of January, and I think we've located some rapid antigen tests.
Good.
Because I love the fact that we have to get tested to come back. So I have to leave basically where there is no people, go to where there is people, get a test to say I'm okay.
Well, I think you'll find now, Mark, with the RA test, you just put it in your bag and take it with you. And then what you'll have to do is you can't do your border pass until you're on your way home.
Yep.
Because we leave a week, or you'll leave a week before, for a week, and you've got to do the border pass application within 72 hours of returning to say, yes, I've done that test and I'm COVID free.
That's right.
So fingers crossed you don't pick any COVID up from pigs and goats in the Pillager. It could be a new strain going on, swine COVID, something. But yeah, we're going through the same process at the moment.
The bizarre thing is, to get that border pass, I'll have to go somewhere where there's Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so that was my next question for the other guy planning a Pillager trip, and that is, does it have any form of service in there?
No. Generally, you get about 3 k's in from the Newell, and you're in black spot, which is actually kind of one of the reasons why I go there.
That's
And
what you want.
You know, you are traveling occasionally. You'll be like, you know, when you're doing the big drive, you'll occasionally get the bing, like, email will reset, but God knows where that is. And I don't think I remember last time we went to Pillager West, I didn't get any signal all the way from Pillager East to Pillager West, even though we went through a location, not a town, just a location, a few houses. But I think Barradine further on down would probably have signal. So, yeah, we've got to go somewhere where we get signal to say that we've been. It's kind of like we've got to go where there's a chance of getting COVID to say that you don't have COVID.
Yeah, well, I'm taking the good old Telstra Selfie Go and 6 meter mast that can go up off the back of the camper. So we might get signal. I'll let you know how we go, and I'll stash that in the bush for you to use on my way out.
Yeah, just
you're following me a week later, right?
Yeah, that's right. Just nail it to a tree.
Yeah, that's right. It'll be fine. Please.
I always found that fascinating, kind of in between the first few lockdowns that we had in Victoria, when everything, like, no one knew what activities you could and you couldn't do and what was covered under exercise and recreation, what wasn't. And I always found it fascinating that hunting was something that was prohibited in Victoria during those lockdowns. It's like, you're saying that we can't go and leave everyone and go in the middle of nowhere by ourselves for weeks at a time, that's not okay. But cram me in a house full of people, that's fine.
Yeah, we sat up here in Queensland and watched a lot of that unfold, and we debated whether you were all nuts down there or what was going on. And
oh man,
the only thing we could come up with, of course, was for you to leave home and get to your hunting place. How many places did you stop, touch things, buy coffee, get fuel, interact with communities, and drag it into the regions, which was obviously something that we're trying very hard not to do. And man, there was so many arguments about it on socials, and
interesting.
Blokes being blokes or people being people will pick the eyes out of the rule to make it work for ourselves, especially when we're also passionate about wanting to go hunting. Said exercise.
Yeah.
It's exercise.
Yeah.
It's like this whole argument of it's for free meat. Oh, come on. Right? It's not free, the amount of money and time.
That's right. Yeah, there's absolutely nothing free about that goat.
Especially not when you're firing large caliber rifles. Every time you fire it, you fill your wallet. You're like, oh, I just felt that money leave my wallet. I remember I think it was the end of the second lockdown, and my brother and I had been wanting to go out for a hunt, and we packed the car, and we got locked down the night before we were supposed to leave. So we just left the car packed, rode out the lockdown, and we left at like 12:01 a.m. the second that we were allowed to. And I remember driving through Melbourne on the way to Mansfield, and it felt like we were on like a NASCAR track because it was just open highways. There was just nothing. And we're just driving, got the four-wheel drive, packed up with gear and the dog in the car. And it was just surreal driving out. It was like Melbourne was like a ghost town. It was weird.
Yeah, it's different parts of the country. It was just, even up here, it was the same. Brisbane went into lockdowns, but I'm 200 k's or so west of Brisbane in a place called Toowoomba, if you know it. And it was sort of like the hard line. Anything up to the Toowoomba regional boundary was always impacted by COVID. And anytime there was a lockdown or whatever, that area was impacted, but Toowoomba was always on the right side. So we've really not been overly impacted by it. But now you look at the cases and it's gone mad. But hey, let's not talk about COVID too much. We're all over it, right? So the one thing I did want to talk about really quickly before we kick into having a chat with you, Chris, was I just before Christmas, we've put a lot of effort into educating or helping our listeners with certain parks and forests. And I guess a lot of the effort around New South Wales parks has been what parks are local to us that produce. So we've sort of spoken about the Pillager, and we've spoken about Severn, and we've spoken about Nundle and Hanging Rock and those sorts of places that you're probably not even familiar with from being down in the hunting mecca of Victoria. But those are parks that produce that are close to us that we've got to hop the border to go and plant. So we've put a bit of focus into those, and we've had interviews with listeners that have hunted there and new people that have gone there, and we've spoken about it a lot, but not being able to get there. Well, we were able to get there the other day, and just before Christmas, I disappeared down there with a couple of people that had either been on a podcast with us or were part of a hunting club and we went down and we had a nice successful hunt chasing goats. But again, something that I'll raise for those that are itching to get out there and they're going to get out there in the middle of the heat and storm season and all of those sorts of things. This country is crazy, right? I come from New Zealand. It's always cold and you always prepare for cold and that's fine. But I left on a November, it was December last week before Christmas. It's a hot time of year for us. We're expecting 36 degrees and we sweltered. Absolutely sweltered, as you would expect. But then it stormed and everything got wet because the storm was just so crazy in terms of how the deluge came down on us. All of a sudden, we were all cold. And some of us didn't plan for being cold. And some of us maybe didn't even plan for water going through the fly net on our tarps, on our tent setups. So I guess all I wanted to say was for anyone that's itching to get out there that's going to go and brave the heat, don't forget about the elements that this place can throw at you because it can get crazy. And if you're not prepared, you can get yourself in trouble. So
we've literally just had a week of 40-degree days for about 7 days in a row. And just today, thunderstorms, raining all day. And it just shifted like on a dime. It's crazy. Keeps you guessing. Keeps you on your toes.
Yeah. Have you covered any of that sort of all-weather discussion with your YouTube world?
No, I haven't. And I actually have had a few people mention and ask about it. One guy in particular, actually, because I have a lot of new hunters that have subscribed to the channel, that are watching the channel, which is fantastic. And a lot of that's come through just the time when I started the channel, as well as the boom of hunters that we've seen coming on board since COVID. It's kind of a bit of a perfect kind of marriage of those two things. And so a lot of hunters are new and they're asking a lot of great questions that we take for granted as having hunted for a while, that they just don't know. And one of the questions was, he was talking about how he hasn't been hunting because it's been raining. And I said, mate, raining is some of the best time to go out hunting. I mean, especially in Victoria, where it feels like you're walking around on cornflakes when it's super hot and crispy. And so what I think I want to do in the future is do a video on how you hunt in different weather conditions and the behaviors of game that change and how they change and how you can take advantage of that, and what, like, safety things, what you need to consider when it's super hot versus wet and crazy versus wind. And just, because I don't think there is a weather condition that you can't hunt. You just need to be clever and smart about it and prepared and safe about it. And there's certainly some weather conditions like raining. I love hunting in the rain. I think some of my favorite hunts have been up in the high country where it's freezing cold and it's raining and it's miserable and it feels like the world is punishing you. And then you have that opportune moment where you get the deer or the stag or whatever it is, and you feel like you're on top of the world. And it's, I'm a bit of a sucker for punishment. So I feel like my favorite hunts are the hunts that I get punished the most.
Yeah, I think Mark said it in one of the previous podcasts. It said, you got to a certain point in life where you don't have to go out there and punish yourself anymore. There are some luxuries you're allowed to take. I think then we were talking about your bum cushion that you put in your pack and blow
That's it,
up
man. I go
when you have it.
It's sitting on rocks. I'm just getting old. That's all it's doing. But you're right about the rain. I mean, if you're hunting state forests, it's rain. That's when the pigs come out.
Yeah.
They'll start moving. Goats are really easy to hunt after the rain because they stink.
Yeah.
No, you get a good downpour and it's summer. Those goats, mate, you can smell them 2 kilometers away. They just reek in the rain. So it's and same with red deer. They stink after.
Yeah, you can't even ask a goat to go and have a bath and get rid of that stink. I've got the door open.
I don't think they can wash that off.
Billy goat out the door, and it's been raining, and it stinks. And it's been perfectly cleaned and all that, anyway.
Whereas I feel like it's the opposite as a hunter, as a human being, is that the rain helps kind of mute your smell, and it helps mute your footsteps and makes the ground a bit spongy. And I just feel like there's no reason why you shouldn't be hunting in the rain. It's just, unless you're a bit of a princess. Yeah, it's just wet. And I mean, in the high country, we're used to that. All of our gear is like super thick and water.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever hunted in shorts ever. Even when I hunted recently in the Otways, which is strange for someone from Queensland or South Wales, seeing you guys out in your little stubbies all the time. But even my recent hunt in the Otways was on a 34-degree day, which is pretty hot in Victoria, and I was hunting in a full kit. That's because that's what I've got and that's what I'm used to. and it was sweltering. And something in my mind just can't hunt in shorts. I just
Really?
see my white legs. And
Oh,
I'm like,
no, I'll hunt in a a base layer thermal pants with shorts, like most New Zealanders tend to do, and that's just because it's less restrictive. When you're climbing mountains and hills and those sorts of things, there's no restriction on your legs when you're trying to move, and that's really important when you're trying to stalk if you're into bow hunting and those sorts of things. But that's I mean everyone does it different. But hey, so we've alluded to the fact that you have this website, and let's talk a bit about that for a second. But the reason we put this podcast together was to help Queenslanders that were struggling for ideas on how to go hunting, could listen to this and find some ways to do that, be it through heading overseas and getting some information from us and then potentially contacting us afterwards and getting some more advice and taking that step to go overseas, or whether it was by finding various different outfitters or finding public land that they could go and hunt on. We just were trying to educate, the people that were struggling on what they could do. And then along came Chris Waters, and this thing popped up in my socials, and I'd sort of been watching some of your work for a little while because, I like to watch Australian content as much as I can rather than, normal TV. YouTube seems to be my favorite channel. And you popped up with this crazy new idea that you were launching soon, and you alluded to launching it soon, so I kept an eye on it. And then all of a sudden in the new year, here it came. And we'll talk a bit about it, but essentially it's not the same as what Mark and I are doing, but it is another thing that the people that are listening to our podcast could attach themselves to and find more ways to get out there and go hunting. So that's why I've invited you today, Chris, to the podcast, and we really appreciate you taking the time at such short notice to join us. So thanks very much.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure.
So Chris, we'll just quickly talk about the overarching brand, I guess, that you've created, which is Hunting Trips Australia. If you want to talk maybe just a little bit about that first, and how it came to be and what it was doing for hunters, and we'll take it from there, right?
Sure. So have a very similar goal to what you guys are doing. My goal is to connect Australian hunters with positive hunting experiences and with mentors. I want to enrich that scene and that culture, and encourage a positive attitude, encourage ethics, as well as skill development. And so when I'm a website designer by trade, and so when I see problems and I think of solutions, I tend to think of them in terms of websites and things that people can use, digital tools. And so when I started looking at all the various outfitters in Australia, which we have a lot of, I found really mixed results in terms of how they're portraying themselves, how big or small their coverage is, and how consistent their information is. So if you're wanting to go out for a hunt in, let's say, New Zealand, and you're wanting to hunt pigs, and you've got this certain price range, it's very difficult to go online just using Google to find that information. You have to do a lot of digging. And even when you find something that you think might be right, there's still a lot of work that you have to do in calling that person up and arranging things. And there's just a whole bunch of barriers in between hunters and hunting experiences through outfitters. And that's given the fact that you know what an outfitter is, and that you know that you can go out there and pay for a guided hunt as a service, as a professional service, because not everyone knows that. Like, we take that for granted, but not everyone knows that. So given that there were the barriers, I thought about it more and more and thought, well, that's something I can help with. Like, I can create a tool, create a platform, call it Hunting Trips Australia. I'll spend the 6 months reaching out to all the outfitters, talking to them, building relationships, getting them on board so they can list their hunts on this platform. I'll make it a free service because I'm going to need volume and I want as many of them as I can. And then I'll make it a free service for hunters to use, so they can jump on there and they can do exactly that. They can say, all right, I want to hunt, let's see something else. I want to hunt red deer in Queensland with a bow, and my price range is, I don't know, let's say it's, $500 for 2 days, punch it all in with accommodation. And it's like Airbnb. It just kind of returns all the listings that match that. And then you literally jump into the profile, have a read, have a look at the pictures, hear about what's included and what's not. And it's all consistent across hunt to hunt. And then you can contact them, and you literally click contact outfitter, and it sends an email directly to them. And I don't touch that email. I don't see that email. I have nothing to do with it at that point. I've kind of just done my service of saying, hey, here's a person here who's interested. Hey, you've got a service, and I connect the two, and they go from there. And so that's what Hunting Trips Australia is. And since I launched it, probably about 4 months ago, it's just gone crazy, insane, much bigger and much faster than I thought, because there's nothing else like it. And 99% of the hunters that I've spoken to, because there's 1% that want to see the world burn, but 99% of the hunters that I've spoken to have been like, this is amazing. I can't believe this didn't exist before. What a great service. And I'm seeing just incredibly positive engagement across the board. And I look at the numbers and I'm just flabbergasted at how many people are using the platform to contact outfitters. And I mean, the outfitters are now like getting booked out like years in advance, which is just like, I think a fantastic thing, because I think we've got some fantastic outfitters in the country who believe in what we believe in. They want to see hunters learn. They want to give them access to property. They want to teach them, want to train them. They want to help raise the next generation of hunters and influence their ethics. And so I'm all on board with connecting hunters with those people.
And this is very altruistic. You're not taking a fee from these people. You've just done this for a service to help the hunting community.
I will say I'm trying to find a way to make money off it, and we'll talk a bit about that in a second, I'm sure. But the platform itself and the bulk of what I'm doing, that service is all free. And so what I'm trying to do now is position myself with the secondary offering that can help release me to keep improving the platform and the core dream.
That's amazing. And in terms of who's using it, where are you finding the majority of the inquiries coming from? Is it a scattering across the country? Do you have property all around the country, or is it fairly focused where you live because you know people? How have you got on finding? Sure. I know. Sorry, and let me add another comment in there. I listened to your conversation with the AHP guys, and it was a really great podcast that you did with them, but it was in its early days, and you were talking about how you were contacting people and they were very skeptical and, too good to be true, bugger off, mate, all of those sorts of things. You've obviously progressed in 4 months pretty quickly. You're getting a better reaction. There's a whole bunch of questions in there to answer, actually. So go for it, mate.
Let me ask you this question in return.
Sure.
The hunters that that have been hunting for a long time, have they changed their attitude in the last 2, 3 years or 4 years? I tend to find hunters and outfitters, we're a traditional bunch. We believe in old school values. We believe in relationships built over a long period of time. And we are, by our very nature, skeptical, and we like to isolate ourselves, which I all think are really positive things that have negative consequences, but are positive things in themselves. So in terms of, let me go back and answer the question. So in terms of the coverage all across Australia, so there we have outfitters listed on the platform in every single state in Australia, including Tasmania, WA, NT. Obviously, most of the coverage that we have, or most of the outfitters that exist, pretty much, I'd say we have 95% of the outfitters in the country listed on the platform. And you'll find most of them just go down the spine of like Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria. That's where the bulk of hunting is. Some in South Australia, very little in WA. Northern Territory also obviously has water buffalo and stuff like that. That tends to be the industry that's more focused around big game and is largely catered to the international market, which is dried up. And they're really having to pivot the way that they do things, or die, unfortunately. And so there's that whole side of it. And then there's a few in Tasmania as well. Just few guys doing stuff down there, mainly things like fallow and stuff like that. The occasional wallaby. But that's that. In terms of have I seen an increase in reception? It's funny. It's a real mixed bag, because the one thing that I do track is the number of people that visit the pages and the number of inquiries that are made. I don't look at the contents of those inquiries. I don't even have access to that data, but I do see the number. And about a month ago, I decided that I would reach out to everyone on the platform and say, hey, just wanted to touch your base, see how you guys are going, see how you're going with the inquiries that I'm sending you. And like some of them, I've sent them like 60 inquiries, 60 leads, and they don't even respond. Like they're like nothing, radio silence. And it's like, wow, okay, you guys must be doing really well as a business to not even bite the hand that feeds you, but like just not even acknowledge and have a conversation back. So it's a real mixed bag. There's a really core group of outfitters that just love the platform, that are just happy with the relationship, that are just all positive. A lot of those guys are the guys that are pivoting themselves, that are realizing that big trophy hunts that originally sustained them from an international market is a much smaller part of their portfolio now, and they're having to do things like meat hunts and do a lot more meat hunts to accommodate the changes in the market. And a lot of those new meat hunts are new hunters who are interested. And so, yeah, it's the whole, I don't know about you, but I'm seeing the industry and the scene shifting quite rapidly. And I guess I'm wanting to create a platform that can help people ride that wave and kind of weather the storm as such.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting point you make about the hunting, I suppose, mindset. Someone once described it to me or explained it to me and said that it's a competitive game.
Yeah.
Okay, it's competition. So, you know, there's not much love in it because ultimately there's a competition, and I kind of think that is very much a Queensland approach, and I found that whilst obviously it exists in New South Wales and Victoria, it's much more of a Queensland approach because simply you are competing with someone for access.
Yeah.
So, you know, so it by its very nature breeds competition. You know, you've got it or you don't, and someone else does, and vice versa. And with the public land hunting in New South Wales and Victoria, I found that there's more of a, I suppose, a level of camaraderie. And I'm wondering if a lot of those outfitters, it'd be interesting to see where the ones who aren't as communicative as others, where are they regionally based. It's an interesting, it's certainly, you know, I mean, look, I run my own business. If someone gave me 60 leads, I'd be talking to them.
Yeah.
We'd be talking. We would be talking.
If somebody rang you and said,
we would be talking. We'd be having coffee. We'd be doing lots of stuff. Yeah.
Some young fella from Victoria called you and said, I've built a platform and I want to advertise and I'm going to do it for free. Would you be skeptical first?
I would. Look, yes, of course I would.
I think
at that point, because you're skeptical of anything for free. Look, I run a business and I get that kind of stuff every day, and you know, unfortunately, most of it is suspiciously suspicious. You know, like oh look, I can help you with this, but certainly if I said, oh well, okay, if there's no skin in the game and I'm just going to sit here and away you go, and then over a few months, that equated to 60 leads. Which even if you think about it, even if I wasn't particularly good and I turned only 10%, that's 6 new jobs.
Yeah.
I'd be chatting to you.
Yeah, and I mean,
So
a lot of these jobs.
It's an interesting observation of what's happening in that space. The other thing is too the idea of the I'm interested about this idea about, you know, meat hunt guiding. Where is that happening?
Yeah, most of the meat hunts are happening in state park on Victoria and New South Wales. Although there are a few crews that have land, like Raptor Ridge, for instance. They offer a meat hunt, and it's for them. I believe it's more about, and I could be wrong. I don't want to put words in their mouth. I believe it's more about gaining clientele, repeat customers that will then move on to the trophies. After they've had a really positive experience, because what those guys do is actually fantastic. They're actually really good at what they do, a really high caliber service. So I don't believe they make a lot of profit. And again, given they are on private land, they're eating into their numbers in terms of their stock, what they have access to, which then, you know, breeds the trophies. So they need to be careful about that. But yeah, that's mostly where the meat hunts are happening in those places. What I will say though about your point about some, you know, remaining disgruntled and skeptical and others coming on board and being excited. In the new kind of venture that I've been working on recently, which we'll talk about later, it's a hunting club, and one of the things they offer in this hunting club is giveaways of guided hunts from these outfitters that I developed relationships with. And what's been really positive is when I put the word out there and said, hey, I'm going to start a hunting club. I'm wanting to give as much value to the members as possible. One of the ways I'm doing that is to offer free guided hunts. Are you happy to contribute a giveaway? Had a whole bunch of them raise their hand. And a lot of them really positive about the experience and wanting to give back, which is fantastic. So I will say that it's not all doom and gloom. There's actually a lot of really positive. In fact, it's not doom and gloom at all.
I'm super impressed with that.
Yeah.
You know, I've thought about what you've been doing as we led up to this conversation, and I had assumed that you'd taken a gamble on the membership base that you were going to get, the funds that would come in, and you were going to prepay some of these offers to. And instead, you've actually got all of the support behind you from the outfitters, which is incredible. Well done. And 4 months.
I will say, Vince Ash, I'll give him a shout out and say that when I initially approached him, I realized that maybe I was thinking I was asking too much of these people, because I know that some of these hunts are like thousands of dollars. And so I said to them, maybe if you could just offer a meat hunt. Or even brand it as like a training course that there's no guarantee of seeing deer or getting deer or whatever it is, pigs or whatever. And he came in and said, no, he's like, I understand it costs money to make money, and you've invested in me and invested in the platform. So I want to offer this big, I think it's like a red stag trophy hunt that he's offering as part of his Queensland Safari or Queensland Deer Safari. I can't remember what it's branded as, but yeah, like just overwhelmed, because it given that I've been offering this platform for free and not making any money, but it's taken a lot of my time. It's taken a good 6 months of my life, calling all these outfitters, building the relationships, building the platform, marketing it. It's great to have people come behind me and say, you know what, like if I can help out in this way, I'll help out. I mean, it just speaks to that hunting spirit, hunting community that we love so much.
Yeah. And I have to say, looking at the content and what you've put together, it's clear you have a background in marketing and in digital content creation, because it is pretty schmick. It's well branded. It looks really great. It's easy to catch the attention. You go and have a look, you type in whatever it is you want to watch on YouTube to do with hunting, and yours stands out a mile away with its, I'm colorblind, but I'm assuming it's a green, side. I recognize it instantly, and you've done a great job with it. And that flows through to the Australian Huntsman. Well, that's the YouTube side of it.
Yeah.
So how long have you been running that channel prior to building Hunting Trips? Because did you have a reasonable following around that, and has that helped you, get introductions to some of these guys, or has this all really been in this short period of time?
Yeah. So I'll be completely honest with you guys. I'll give you the inside scoop. So
Won't tell anyone, I promise.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. This is going to be edited out, right? No. So 6 months ago, I've been working as a freelance designer for a number of years now. I actually own a digital agency, a website design agency that I sold, and then I stayed on as the director. And I've been moving towards this journey of slowing down and getting close to the land and the food that we eat with my wife and my young family. And so the goal for me has always been moving towards that lifestyle, and hunting is a massive part of that. And I love hunting for that reason, because it enables me to do more of it. And I originally started the YouTube channel because I had another channel. I was getting a bit annoyed. I was just getting tired of it. I've been doing it for a while and wasn't seeing a lot of growth. And I realized, I'm like, why don't I do something for another passion that I have? And I'll do hunting. And then, I thought eventually down the line, maybe I'll offer guided hunts, because I'd like to do that in the future. Maybe that's something I can work towards, doing guided hunts. And so I thought, well, if I build a YouTube channel now, I can build an audience around just the passions that I have for hunting and educating people, and that could help, feed that kind of creative desire that I have in myself. And then maybe I can use it in the future as like an advertising platform, as like a side, like a call to actions kind of for this outfitting thing. And so I started the YouTube channel, and it started growing really, really quickly, and people started getting on board and really liking the content. And a lot of the audience of that channel resonates just with, I guess, my personality, positivity, authenticity, all these things that I think I really value, and a lot of them resonate with that. And so that's why it's been growing so much. And it was only a couple of months into having the channel that I had this epiphany about, wanting to connect these hunters with great services. And that's when Hunting Trips Australia was birthed. And so they kind of came around at similar times. And the YouTube channel is primarily about influencing positive hunting culture. That's its goal. But at the same time, I do leverage the audience and their attention and do little short promos for Hunting Trips Australia as part of that. And it's not, it's just like, hey, while we're in this video, let me quickly tell you about this thing, 20 seconds. And I really want to value people's time. And I really want to value the fact that most of them have jumped onto the channel not to see something else. They came to watch a hunting video. They came to be educated. They came to be entertained. So I don't want to abuse that right or that privilege. But at the same time, my goal is to connect hunters with great hunting experiences. And so if I can kind of say, hey, here's something you might like, and it's not like a sleazy sales promo, it's something I legitimately think that you will like, why don't you check it out? So it's like the YouTube channel is like a very strong marketing arm for Hunting Trip Australia. They're separate, they're completely separate things, identities, but they feed into each other.
Yeah, but I think from what I've seen, putting the Hunting Trips Australia, little ad partway through or at the end of it, and the things that you've done with that, it doesn't really take away too much from what you've done, because your YouTube channel is not all about going and shooting something.
No,
you've got very few videos actually of you going out and having successful hunts, probably because you haven't had the time yet to build all the content, and lots of stuff on really cool things that you should have a look at. A knife with a ring in it. No, the other way around. A ring with a knife in it. And a conversation about, whether you should shoot animals. There's lots of things that you bring up that are not necessarily out there shooting an animal, but it's all the related things. And I think that your Hunting Trips Australia is a very related item to all of the things that you're talking about. So I don't think it takes it away. I don't think you need to be worried about that. But it's an interesting YouTube channel, because it's interesting to hear that you say that you're trying to build a respectful hunting culture within the channel, because it comes across very fresh. Almost the city guy that's going hunting rather than the country guy. And this is going to get taken completely the wrong way, but I looked at someone who put one up the other day, and it was a dude standing over an animal with a wound facing the camera and a smoke hanging out of his mouth, and it just looked bad. And you think, holy, and then you flick over to old Fresh Chris Waters, YouTube channel, and it's very respectful and polite and upbeat and happy. And I always sort of laugh at the grim photo of the kill. We're all, I shot a deer. Here's Chris.
Well,
different.
What's funny is that I legitimately am a country guy. Like I live in a small town in Victoria, and I made the move from the city because I didn't like those values. So it's interesting that I come across as a city guy. Maybe I still have a lot of city guy in me. I've got to burn that out. But it's funny, all of the different hunting subcultures that exist. Like you got your deer guys, you got your deer trophy guys, you got your harvesters, you got your shooters who will just like shoot anything. I don't have a lot to do with the pig dog culture, and I'm really interested in that. I don't fully understand it, and there's things in that culture that kind of like I go, oh, that's like it's hard to watch an animal.
It's offensive, but it shouldn't be, because I'm a hunter.
Exactly. And it's not necessarily that it shouldn't be. It's that I don't feel like I understand this, and I want to understand this. And I want to find the similarities between the values that we share, because we clearly do. I think sometimes there's a bit of, like you've said, there's a bit of a marketing or branding issue with some guys that produce a lot of content, in that they don't think about that and how it might come across, whether that's that guy who's having the cigarette, the fag, and he's sitting over a deer. Like, if you want to smoke, that's awesome. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but it's like, if you think, like, have a think about what that might look like, and in the image that someone might perceive that. I'm very conscious of how I'm perceived, because I know that even being super sensitive and trying to be mindful about it, that people still get the wrong idea all the time. People all the time. And so, especially, and you're on YouTube, you're like basically a poster boy for like, go throw your darts. Like, here's the dartboard, shoot away. Like that's what you do when you jump on YouTube, and you need to be okay with that. And you need to be confident with the reasons why you made the decisions, and think carefully about the decisions that you want to make, because the darts will come.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's very true. And look, the link between what you were talking about there is that idea of social license and influencing the social license of hunting. There's this argument that there's the legislative argument, and there's the moral argument, and there's the practical argument about, food gathering and so on and so forth. But then there's this weird thing called social license, which is basically what is the wider society's license for you to operate? What do they think about it? And I think that reflects, your video that you're putting together is going to have an effect on that. It's going to, and it's either going to be positive or negative. It's going to have an effect. You're not going to be able to not have an effect. So you've got to think about what that effect. And strangely enough, someone who talks about this a lot is Ned Macon, who is probably one of the best and well-known pig dog guys around. And so his role within that organization and in that industry, or that certainly that area he sits, he's given a great deal of thought about the social license of what, of dogging has, and and how to position it. And so, he's very much about, what you're going to do is hard to look at, but you can portray it in a very positive way.
Sure.
Yeah.
It is, because it is. I mean, look, dogging's, it's serious stuff. It's quite visceral. You're right there at the, you're right there at the pointy, or no, you're 6 inches away from the pointy end type thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Or 12 inches, depending on what you're carrying. But you're right there at the pointy end, so that you need to, people are going to see that, and then there's no hiding from what they're going to see too. And the interesting thing is too, it's unfortunately, for a long time, no one would have thought there was anything wrong with that at all. It's only quite recent that there's a challenge to that, that's not necessarily a good thing. But, hunting with dogs is, well, there's a pretty good chance that, we used dogs to hunt before we had them in our beds. You know what I mean?
There's a good chance.
If you think about it, we probably they were more hunting, and that was the dog for the greater period of time of human interaction than the Labradoodle that has its own, has its own cell phone that sits in your house type thing. That's a new invention. Hunting with a dog is a very, very old invention. And so it's weird how that's shifted so much. And I mean, the deer guys unfortunately suffered from that in Victoria, if I remember correctly. They used to be able to hunt deer differently with dogs. Now they certainly could still hunt, but the way that, and I think that all came down to a video of a dog attacking a deer. I think that's where it all came apart. That idea, and that was a dog that engaged with the deer rather than bailed or drove a deer like what the hound guys do. But I mean, for me, that what the hound guys do is really, really something special. I'd really love to be part of that. That
impressive.
Hunting with a dog is a really interesting thing. If you haven't ever done it, it's hard to explain. There's I've hunted with my Labrador only a couple of times, and Ian hunts with a dog, and it's a very different thing to do. And I wish I could do more of it, but I'm just not in a position to do it.
What's beautiful about it, I think, because of my brother, he hunts with a hound, and I hunt with him quite a lot up in the high country. And Misty, his hound, she's just beautiful, and she's incredibly intelligent, and she's a better hunter than me by far.
So is she a hound, or as in, is she a bailer, or is she an indicator?
She's an indicator, so she's a pointer. And she there's this beautiful, and I've only hunted with just her and me a few times. Most of the time I'm hunting with my brother and she's tagging along. Well, I'm tagging along really because they're hunting really well and I'm trying to help. But there's this beautiful relationship where, because there's a relationship between the hunter and the prey that exists normally, and this bond and this respect and this game that's played. And then you introduce like a third party, a partner in that. And then all of a sudden there's this really interesting, beautiful dynamic between you and your partner, and reading the dog and respecting the dog and trusting the dog's decisions, and trusting the dog will, especially with a pointer, not go crazy and just go jump on the deer. Like it will help you and it will assist you until you're ready to take the shot. And then that kind of trifecta of like relationships is established between all three of you. And it's like you've definitely experienced this, I'm sure, guys, but you take someone out hunting and you see them make their first kill, and there's this really special moment that you get to experience, and this joy that's almost like you get more joy seeing someone else make that kill and have that experience than taking the shot yourself. And then every time that you hunt with the dog, you get to share in that the dog's enthusiasm. And like Misty, whenever a kill's made, like the dog points, you take the shot and the deer runs off, and then you're like, go get her, and Misty's off like a bullet, going after and tracking the blood, and then she'll find the deer, and then she's excited, she's all over the deer, she's jumping, she's kind of blade biting its ears and just
plucking it,
ecstatic, yeah, licking up the blood, and it's just like you get to celebrate together, and that's a really special moment. Like regarding what you were saying about the picked mark, I don't think any of us have an issue with the violence of what's occurring, because the violence in itself is not necessarily a bad thing, depending on, I mean, if it's sloppy and it's disrespectful, I'm sure that we definitely have an issue with that. But there is a level of violence that happens in any kill, whether it's deer or pig or goat or fox or rabbit, whatever it is, there's the element of violence that leads to death. But it's being respectful, and understanding the relationship that exists between you and that animal and the cost. And the issue is that for people creating content on YouTube, they're coming up with all of these different agendas. And there's an adrenaline element, and then there's a filming and technical element, and then there's restrictions on getting the shots and, but being present in the hunt. And there's all of these things that make it really difficult to maintain that balance between communicating the reality of what's happening and the values that are being demonstrated with the violence that's happening at the same time. And unfortunately, like you said, that public license can really work against you if you're not careful in that space. And it's difficult to be careful. It's a lot of work. And you naturally spend all this time filming it and getting this kill, and all you want to do is upload it because you're excited and you want people to see it and you want people to respond to it and engage with it. And that can be a pitfall as well, because no, you need to sit with this. You need to think carefully about how you edit this. You need to make sure that what happened is okay and that it's portrayed in the right way, because again, there is 1% of the world that just want to see it burn, regardless of whether you've worked really hard to portray it in the right way or not. But there's also a lot of decent people that could be offended if you didn't portray it correctly.
Yeah, look, it's a good point. I mean, and the fact that there is that inherent violence involved in, I mean, by the name kill kind of gives it away, doesn't it? But and I think for a lot of people, especially in the life that a lot of people live, they don't see that.
Yeah,
they're not in an environment where that happens often. So I think for a start, that can be quite confronting to a lot of people. That by its very nature. I mean, and if you hunt and you're in any way successful, you've seen it firsthand. You know what happens. And I mean, and I think there's those areas where it's kind of devolved away from that. I mean, fishing's a great example. There's the catch and release fishing culture is all pervasive now, and so there's people who fish only catch and release. Don't ever take food for, and I think in a way, at least some of them, they're kind of kidding themselves. They're kind of going, well, I'm putting it back in the water and
It
it's
floats
always
away
going
with its
to
air
it's
bladder.
Nemo, and it's going to find its dad, and it's going to live happily after. Whereas probably not. It's probably going to go down at the bottom, and another fish is going to snaffle it while it's while it's recovering. It's going to, or it's not going to be a successful release anyway. Whereas what we do, there is no catch and release. You have to make that decision. And how that you portray that decision, and also the consequences of that decision, I think is very, very important. In fact, it's probably the most important thing, because that's what's going to be confronting to people. They're going to go, ooh. And I mean, it's even like if you've ever had anyone who you've had around firearms for the first time, and they when they're used to seeing movies, and then they hear it for real, they're going to go, oh, hang on, that's a lot more scary and loud, and there's recoil and lots of noise and all sorts of things. Whereas I've seen it on TV, and it's kind of quite controlled and so on. So I think that's with operating a firearm, let alone operating it to take an animal. So I think that's really important, that whatever you're doing, that portraying that, or giving, not even portraying it, but giving consideration to how it will be portrayed, is probably one of the most important things you can do.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. I think with Andrew, we spoke about this a little bit, about taking, this is Andrew Day, who we had on earlier, and we were talking about that that moment that you're with a hunter and it's their first time with an animal in their sights, and they've got to make that decision for the first time in their life if that's what they want to do. And I think we spoke a little bit about, how much do you need to know that person before you take them into that experience, because as a mentor and someone that takes these people out, you kind of want to know how they're going to react, to a point, right? Because you're not their counselor. If things go slightly awry, and things can happen, right? I'm not talking about dangerous things to yourself necessarily. I'm just talking about how people are going to react in that situation. Then it can be quite interesting. And, I know that, people and hunting clubs will take new members out, and they'll spend a lot of time getting them into a position where they can take an animal, and that new shooter opts out. And it can be incredibly frustrating for the mentor. So, there's all of those things to consider, I think, as well. And we've got this upcoming trip next week. We leave. I've got a bunch of people coming. There's 6 of us in total, and there are 3 fairly new hunters, and at least 2 of them I know have not yet taken the life of an animal. And we've chosen this place. It's quite safe for us to do it. I've got some good people around us that can support those members, and that's the goal, to help them through that process. And 2 of them have said they're not really sure how that's going to go for them in the moment.
Wow.
Right? One of them particularly, top bloke, really nice fella, has spent the last year going through shooting his first rifle, small calibers up to the next caliber, and then up to a larger caliber, has purchased his first hunting rifle. He's taken a lot of advice and support from the group, and this will be his first outing. And I'm excited for him. I'm excited for me to be able to help him with that. But, you've got to put yourself in check as well, and make sure that you give him that excellent experience that he's looking. Not that I'm a guide or anything like that, but there's a whole lot of, you don't know how they're going to react, and there's a whole lot of respect that needs to go with it. So it's not just outwardly on the YouTube side that you need to do that. It's in person with people as well that you've got to be careful with it, because you build that that culture with them, around them, as they're participating, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm curious as to whether this has always been a factor that's been at play with humanity and society, or whether this is a relatively new thing with the kind of the birth of the modern age, and everyone's interconnected, and we have lots of social media, and we're moving closer to mass production of meat, and moving away from gathering and harvesting. Like, I'm curious, was this an issue in like the 1600s, where I don't know, men who were taken out for the first time hunting and shot an animal and were like, oh, like getting my hands dirty. They're inside the carcass and they're removing the, like, was this an issue then? Like, I'm curious. Like, I don't know the answer. I'm wondering how much of this is just the human condition and the fact that death and violence are uncomfortable by their very nature. And that's just always something that human beings have struggled with, or whether this is a relatively modern issue that's arisen from the fact that we're so far removed from the protein that we consume. I don't know the answer, but
I think Mark is going to be the most qualified person here to answer that.
He's looking at the ceiling.
My uneducated. Well, let me just get Andrew on the phone. Hang on a sec. We'll see if we can ring him in. No, I mean, I think it's a modern issue. Yeah. In a hunter-gatherer society that we all were before, you would go through this daily. I'm reading a book. I've been reading a book for 6 months. I've read lots of books, but one I've been reading for 6 months called Sapiens. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a brief history of mankind. It's a fascinating read that gets your mind going around how we've ended up in the situation that we are and the predictions of what we will become because of it. But he talks in one of the chapters. He talks about how we were the happiest society on record when we were hunters and gatherers, when we were subsistence livers, when we went out every day and engaged our bodies and our brains to get meat, to forage and do these sorts of things, right? And that's when we were happy, and that's when these things still mattered, but not like they do now. It's different now that people are putting more thought into it because they're removed from it. We became a lesser society when we learnt horticulture. That revolution that came along, and family A learnt to grow potatoes, and they grew them en masse, and they lived on potatoes, and they didn't have time to go and eat meat. They just ate potatoes. And they might trade some, but really they didn't engage their brains and their muscles and their human instinct to go and survive anymore. Someone else grew grapes and someone else grew pigs, whatever. But you get the point. We lost all of that capability. I'm really interested. You go through this book and you end up really thinking about how fast society is moving, because all of this technology age and all of the things that we live and breathe today, they've only happened in the last couple of decades.
Yeah.
Right. Your grandparents weren't doing this.
No.
Right. And I think being removed from everything is becoming a mental challenge for us. Yeah. Or for those that don't participate, Mark, in nature.
The idea of foraging it only went out the window, in the 50s. People still foraged then, if not more. You talk to anyone who lived through the Depression, and they'll tell you rabbits and top-knot pigeons is basically what got most of Australians through. When you look at so if you look at the United States, and one of the reasons why they nearly ran out of animals, game animals, was because of the that meat market. So, places that new places that were established at like for a gold rush or something like that, there would be miners, but there would be people who fed the miners, and there would be guys who went out and hunted. Yeah. That deer or bear or whatever it is, and that was what the miners would eat. Someone would be out there literally doing that, going out, and and they're the people who basically nearly wiped out deer species because there was just too many people to feed with game animals. But I think even as a miner, whilst you might not have been killing that, the way that you would have seen the butchering and all that right in front of you. So, you might have been one step away. And I think what's happened over time is that we've become, we've kept on stepping away, if you know what I mean, or I don't know if it's stepping back or stepping forward or whatever it is. Let's call it stepping away, but you've stepped away. So, like Coles don't even have butchers in the butcher shop in the Coles anymore. So there's not even, so that meat that you get in Coles is not even processed in Coles anymore by someone who's He's got a cut of meat. He's making it in a smaller cut of meat and wrapping it in a plastic,
When
plastic.
did that happen?
That's only just happened.
I was going to
Yeah,
say,
no
because
more
I've
butchers.
I've
that's
spoken
right.
to the butchers at the
Yeah,
supermarket.
it's only a new thing. They're saying, yeah, we're getting rid of the butchers. So basically, so that'll come in. That'll come in. But when I was at uni, one of the places that we went to for whatever reason, and I can't quite explain you why. There was lots of pretend reasons they threw it up. We actually went to the abattoirs.
Fantastic. What were you studying?
Well, it was ostensibly health and safety.
Psychology.
But
it was an art.
It was psychology. Psychology. That's what I did. I did a psychology degree.
Yeah.
So ostensibly it was about health and safety and about also automation. It was lots of things about automation and the way that they use machines to control workforces and all sorts of wonderful things like that. But we went there and they didn't take you into the kill room, but they took you in. You saw it come out dead on the hook. And then, and it was like some kind of evil mousetrap where, animals went in, and it was almost like some kind of cartoon music would be going like do 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 do, and it just got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it was in the box and it was gone. And that was the whole animal, and they were doing that 1,500 head a day or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that within a very short time I went from a cow, cattle on a truck to something in a box. So, and if I had never gone there, and I was a person who had hunted, I'd have no real concept of how that thing at Coles, that piece of meat that I'm going to argue with, that costs $89 a kilo, and I'm going to get in a fist fight because I've cooked it for 2.5 minutes as opposed to 2 minutes to 15 on the side. That I wouldn't know, had idea how that from Clarabelle to that would have been completely lost on me. And I think one of the big indicators of that is the fact that we now celebrate eating and cooking far more than we celebrate the provision of the food. So, Master Chef, all of that stuff is about eating, consuming. None of it's about, it's, oh, look at this wonderful, how do you do this? None of it's about, oh, how did I get that piece of meat? Or how did I get that, the spinach or this fennel or whatever it is that I'm outrageously overproducing. None of it's about that. It's all about how to consume it. And I like to say, when you go to the cave paintings or you look at the cave paintings, it's never about, there's no cave painting of like 12 cavemen sitting around while another caveman's in the middle, tossing the salad. It's not about that. It's never about the consumption.
It's a celebration of the hunt, isn't it?
It's about the animal.
Yep.
It's about this thing that is so mystical to you and about your pursuit of it.
Yeah.
It's never like, there's never like a picture of this, like the Last Supper type thing of cavemen all around, kind of, throwing in, like doing all this stuff and all that stuff. None of that.
There's also no pictures of fat cavemen.
Well, that's
pretty lean.
Yeah.
Well, what I think is
hunt 5 days and you realise, you can eat fat, you can eat liver, whatever you want, because the input output ratio is certainly on the right side of the scales now. It's not like, oh, I can't touch that. That's a bit of a fatty cut. No, you want that in you. And I mean, if you ever watch Meat Eater, that's one of the big talks about the fact that, all these mountain men, they went for the fattiest because that's where that's where the nutrients are.
I think the greatest travesty that not a lot of people talk about is that it's going to what you were saying, Ian, as well as the human condition and where we are and where we're going. The really sad thing, the real travesty, is that we're all advocates for going out and harvesting meat. We raise pigs at our property and we very, very, very rarely buy meat. We've got just freezers full of deer and pigs and stuff and chickens. If we had our way, like the three of us, and we increase the amount of people who were harvesting wild game, we would get to the point where there's no wild game left. Like the amount of human beings and the size of the human population is we can't actually sustain what we've got in the wild. So if you took every single person on the planet and my wife and I joke about this quite a lot, and we talk about the supermarket apocalypse would be like our favorite apocalypse, like just a really localized one where all the supermarkets just explode and then everyone has to figure out what to do. And like, there's no zombies or anything. It's no like Jesus coming back. It's literally just like
zombies.
Yeah. Well, I'm a fan of the zombies.
Zombies.
Something to shoot at. But no. So it's just the supermarket's gone. If that happened, we would destroy the earth. We would just destroy every living thing because we're so accustomed to eating the amount of meat that we do eat. And if people were motivated enough to get off their butts and go out and harvest it, we would just like destroy everything. So we're in this really sad position at the moment where we're wanting to encourage this activity, wanting people to go out there, and especially in places like New South Wales and Victoria where you have access to public land, it's like go out there and harvest deer and harvest pigs and all these different things. But there's this balance between the resource that's available, the politics that go into governing that resource, and the amount of people that can actually do that successfully. Like that's a finite amount. And I don't know where we are on that scale. You hear people say that there's no deer around. I can't seem to find deer. And you have people saying, oh my goodness, the deer are everywhere. We need more hunters killing them. Like it's hard to know.
You look, what I would say to that, and that is certainly a very compelling argument, because from a face value it's true. Like not everyone could start, you couldn't, that's right, if you wanted to get rid of the deer, you just say, look, everyone go out and shoot a deer, and there'd be no deer left, literally. Would take us a couple of years and we'd get them all.
A lot of hungry people, Mark.
That's right. But I think what the argument is, and that's the idea that hunting by itself has to be selective because you want to have a future of hunting. So, and that's why when people say, oh, hunters just like to kill everything, you go, well, no, in fact, I don't. If I wanted to kill everything, I wouldn't be spending all this money because, I want this to continue. So you don't want to kill everything. But what I would say is the challenge to that apocalypse, or that idea that, you can't have everyone hunting because of that. I think the answer is everyone doesn't have to hunt.
Yeah.
But if everyone participated at some level in the production of their own food. So even if that means if you live in an inner city apartment, you've got a flower box that you grow fennel in, or you hunt, or you do this, or you fish, or you even go to the fish markets and see the fish. I think that is the balance point. So it doesn't have to be this consumption model. It has to be and I think that's the model is a consumption model. I think it has to move from a consumption model to a participation model.
That word comes up all the time, doesn't it? Participation.
Yeah. It's a participation model. You've got to say, you know what? I'm going to grow a tomato plant. Now I don't expect that this will replace my purchasing of tomatoes for the rest of my life. It might not even, replace, a season. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grow something, or I'm going to fish, or I'm going to hunt, or I'm going to do something. And I think if we had more of that, we would have a lot better balance about that. Or look, I'm even going to go out and pick my own strawberries. Or that kind of thing. I think the idea of some participation in your food is really important.
I think it is a great point. I think it's something that needs to be considered more. I drive past Australia's Food Bowl on my way to my city office in Brisbane from time to time. And this is the Lockyer Valley, and it's where a lot of the green produce is produced for Coles and Woolworths. I'm talking thousands of acres of broccoli and thousands of acres of cauliflower. Have you ever tried to grow those things? I couldn't grow 4 of them. You go to Bunnings and you go and pick yourself a punnet of these and you put them in your garden. You're probably doing better than I am, Chris, because you're moving to this sort of lifestyle. But certainly a lot of us had a crack at it during COVID when we all got locked into homes, and Bunnings was sold out of all of the fresh produce, and we were participants in that. We went and stocked our gardens up. We were already growing stuff, but then I had to wait for it.
Yeah,
for
that's a really good point.
4 months. before I could harvest a single broccoli head.
Yeah,
So,
gangly broccoli.
This pathetic looking thing. And, old mate down the road, he's got thousands of acres of broccolis and every one of them perfect. He understands what he's doing, of course, and there's a whole bunch of things that go into that. I get it. But participating, like Mark's talking about, probably allows you to value food even more than you ever have done, because you realize how hard and how much thought. And it's the same with hunting. The effort that goes into taking that goat or taking that deer, we talked about this with others as well. Every time you plate a piece of that up, you pull it out of the freezer and it's got the date and the animal and, potentially where you got it from. That's how I package mine up and throw them in the freezer. It comes out and I can remember the hunt and I remember what it was, and it's going to be a discussion with your friends when it's at a barbecue and those sorts of things. But you certainly appreciate how much effort goes into it. And you'll do this with your pigs, giving a pig away to one of your family members for the price it costs you to raise it. I think I heard in a chat that you had, you could buy it at Coles for the same amount, but it's a different pig. Yeah, and it's a different process, and you're not connected to it. And it's
I think you raise a great point in that there's in the participation model, there is a buffer that protects the animals, because, like you said, that there is time that has to go into it, and there is a success rate that has to go into it, whether it's growing broccoli or harvesting a deer, and that failure rate, I guess, is Mother Nature's way of protecting herself. And so deer are really smart. Sambar are like ghosts. Like you see them and then they evaporate. And you don't even hear them, but they're like a 230 kilo deer running full speed through the bush on the same, crunchy material that you're walking on, and you don't hear them. And so I guess if there was a supermarket apocalypse and it did go down to a participation model, I think you're right that there would be this natural buffer that even the people who are participating would help protect, and it already does with the people who are. So yeah, great points.
Yeah, thank you for finding the name for our podcast, by the way. The supermarket apocalypse will be.
I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, it's actually more than a couple, because we had my wife's family out from England, so that that was 2018 maybe before. Went to a friend's place for Christmas, and on the menu was a pig that we had shot.
Nice.
Okay? Now, I did not realize that everyone hated eating that tough old boar, because I thought I was eating pure honey. I thought this was like, this is the most tasty meal I had. Yeah, that's it. And it was simply because I saw it, I saw that whole process.
You couldn't not like it.
Yeah,
your brain wouldn't let you.
It's like, people.
It's the same like gangly bit of broccoli. You're like, what a beautiful broccoli.
I
know. I realized how much people disliked it, because it was, they said, oh, it's so tough and chewy, and I thought, what? It's like, was it the same party? Was it a different place?
But it's right?
The link between the food was it was an immediate link between the food.
If you went and picked up an apple at Coles that had a bug hole in it, you'd put it back and go for another one. You'll cut around that. If
mate, like
no problems whatsoever.
If they got a little thing, I just spit that out. And
no way are you going to do that at Coles.
Oh yeah.
No way. All right. Well, that's great. Okay. Well, here we are. I told you that this would go on. It doesn't take long to cover a couple of hours. We're a little way through that now, and we haven't yet touched on the Hunting Trips Australia's hunting club. So I want to draw all of our attention to that, because we've got people that will be listening to this that know they listen in for new opportunities and things to go and research and do. So let's talk about that. So you've done your YouTube thing, The Australian Huntsman. People will go and find you and have a look at the city hunter that we talk about, even though you're from the country, but this fresh face of hunting, which is quite good. So you've done that. You've had 4 or 5 months now of Hunting Trips Australia. That's been a great success, and it will grow. I'm sure it will grow, and more people will understand it. And look, there are outfitters that we know that we're going to point in your direction, and hopefully they can land on your page. And I'd like more and more opportunities out of Queensland to go on there. And I know I went on there and had a quick scan in the filters, and I was able to find some. So we'll have a look at what that can drum up for us in our spare time when we need to find another hunt. There are still a few around for us poor Queenslanders that can't hunt on public land. There are ways of getting your fill. The year is absolutely jam-packed already, so it's okay, but it could be better. So then the new thing that you've launched in this new year, literally only a couple of weeks ago, if not only a week ago, is what I thought was called the New Hunting Club Australia. It has different versions of names, but essentially it's the Hunting Club attached to Hunting Trips Australia. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I've been not struggling, but I've been putting all this effort into building this platform to connect hunters, and I want to move and position myself to do that more, and be released to do that more. And so to do that, you need to have money, you need to have revenue. And so I thought, well, what's something that I can do? What do I have at my fingertips? Access that I have, relationships that I've developed, that I can pull together to bring something of value to people that people want to buy or support, that can enable me to do this more, so that we can continue to see positive hunting culture spread through this country. And there's some fantastic people that I have in my life that through meeting through various hunting things, Facebook groups and stuff, that share the same values. And one of them is Phil from the HSSA, Hunters and Shooters Association. Hunters Sporting Shooters Association, or some configuration of that. And we were having a conversation and just brainstorming ideas, and he really got me onto the idea of a hunting club and using these relationships I have with outfitters to pull value in and offer free guided hunts as part of this club. Leveraging the relationships that I have with retailers, hunting trip product providers, from the Huntsman, and all these various things, the YouTube channel, access to content, to pull it all together in a hunting club and platform. And so that's what I've done, and spent a lot of time building it into the platform and wanting to make it fresh and wanting to do things a little bit differently than some of the other bigger clubs out there, wanting to be as personable and authentic as possible, as well as having a platform that provides as much value as possible. Because I've done a lot of research out there, and there seems to be clubs that are really, really heavy on the insurance and genuine reason, and that's kind of why they exist. And then you have some clubs that are all about the social stuff, and then you have some clubs that are literally just like a subscription to get free stuff or the chance to win free stuff. And I think that individually they miss a large part of what it's all about. And so I wanted to kind of pull everything together and provide a club that had value for people, and offer it at a monthly rate for people as well. So that's what the club is.
And it's virtual.
So at the moment it's virtual, yeah. So there is a camp that I'll be running in October that you can come to, and that will be the first kind of in-person thing. But I'm thinking as well about having some gatherings and meets, informal things throughout the year, and I'm trying to lock them down too, because what I want to avoid is it just being a digital thing. And I know that it's really tempting to do that. You can make a lot more money. It's a lot less effort to do that. And that's where people naturally just land nowadays, given that we're all working from home or everything's very, very digital. But even though I'm an isolationist by nature, I prefer to be alone. That's when I'm energized. I see the value, especially in hunting and with communities, of meeting together and having face-to-face conversations, having a beer, having a laugh, sharing stories, sharing life together. And so I want to make sure there's as much of that as possible. So that's something that I'm wanting to build into the club as it grows.
And you talk about value that's packed into the membership. I noticed there's 3 layers of membership. You want to talk us through those? You got them off the top of your head, or you need to pull up a website?
Well, maybe, how about I try and go off the top of my head, and if you have a website, you can correct me.
Yeah, good. Let's go. This is nearly accurate. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Nearly. So there's a basic tier, which is $9.99 a month, if you want to go monthly. If you go yearly and pay for a whole year in one installment, you get $9.99 off it. And that includes your membership as access to the dashboard, access to various discounts with online hunting stores. So at the moment, we've got Hunter's Warehouse in there. We've got Bush Edge in there, who are fantastic. This is yet to be announced, but hey, you'll get the drop on this. Blackfoot, who just make amazing, and I'm not even just spruiking this and pumping up the tires because it's on the platform, but they make amazing custom hunting gear, custom camo, literally stitched and cut out, and like in New South Wales, like one guy doing it from his shed, but like really good, and he's jumping on board. There's courses. You can like R license through HSSA. There's Wally, who has Naturally Sufficient, which is like a holistic lifestyle type courses around permaculture and hunting and harvesting and stuff like that. So there's a whole lot of stuff. There's that. You get early access to the Huntsman content on YouTube, so you get a week in advance before anyone else sees it in the public. And you also get what else? There's one more thing, an invitation to the camp, plus some resources and stuff too. So you can go, and there's just some things like pre-hunt checklist you can get. There's like targets you can download visiting your rifle, stuff like that.
And
that's
is it,
the first.
it's listed as an AHO. It's a genuine reason to have your firearms license. This club.
Not in the first tier, in the second and third tier. So yeah,
Right.
So hunting. So the insurance and the genuine reason is provided in collaboration with HSSA, which is the Registered Hunting Organisation.
Yep.
So the second tiers are actually a combined membership, where you get a membership with Hunting Trips Australia and the HSSA, and they are the body that provides those services.
Right.
And so that's the second one, and that's the major difference between the first tier and the second tier is the inclusion of the insurance, public liability insurance up to $20 million, as well as the genuine reason to own a firearm in Victoria, in Queensland, and in New South Wales, subject to having an R license. And then there's a third tier. So it includes, the second tier includes all the first and those things. And then the third tier basically includes discounts off selected hunts on the website, on Hunting Trips Australia, that for those outfitters that have decided to participate in that, as well as a monthly, bi-monthly guided hunt that's given away. And that's included in the premium, the platinum tier, which is the last one. And the middle tier actually also has products that are given away every month as well.
Yeah. So $9?
$9, $19.99 for the second one, and the third one is $29.99. And what's been really encouraging is that, like, just because I've worked in digital and web and advertising for so many years, you like just classically, and this maybe Mark, you'll appreciate the psychology of this, but you put three tiers in a row, everyone always chooses the middle tier traditionally, just because it's like, it's not even, has nothing to do with money, has nothing to do with value. It's just like, give me three things, I'll take the middle one, thank you. But what's been really encouraging is that over this week, which is the first week that it's launched, most people have been buying the highest tier, which is, for me, that's really encouraging.
You got hunts in this. You've got giveaway guided hunts once a month. That's value. That's great value.
That is value, yeah.
And I'd love to see, if you want to add this into your agenda for the muster or the get together. It'd be great to see a presentation of the successes of those hunts and how they went.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because you're going to have 12 odd people going out there with well-known outfitters having the time of their life, like the experience of their life. It will be amazing. What a great offer.
Yeah, it's really
get it now is what I say before the membership grows too big.
Yeah, well, I've wanted to say that, but I've been like, I don't want to say that at the same time.
You don't want to say it. I'm saying that. But
yeah, you definitely should. Yeah, you definitely should.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, and in terms of your aspirations for how this grows, obviously as many people and as many outfitters as you can possibly get, but you've put some thought into how that might look in 12 months.
Yeah, I'm already, like I've just said, I'm already having conversations with other retailers to get them on board to offer discounts. I'm already having conversations with other guides to get them on board to offer guided hunts, not just in the future, but also maybe cramming more into this year. I'm spending a lot of time investing in this club and pushing value into it, and I want to keep pushing. What I don't want to do is just set and forget and be like, all right, I built this platform that's largely automated and largely digital at the moment, and like, see you later, go make me some money. I want to continually put stuff into it, because I want it to I want it to be successful, and I want people to enjoy it. I want people to get something out of it. I don't want it to become a crusty, bureaucratic, political, slow-moving body that's faceless and just takes your membership. I don't want that. Maybe explain the chuckling.
Yeah, that's generally what a club is.
Well, but the thing is, it doesn't have to be. That's the issue.
It doesn't. No, yes.
And you've got guys like yourself. This is what's tragic, and this is one of the reasons why I want to start the club, is because you've got guys like yourself who are really passionate about connecting hunters, really passionate about hunting ethically, really passionate about mentoring, really passionate about all the things that we love about hunting, that we want to see about hunting. And you get those people together and you form an incorporated body or an association or whatever it is, and you grow a business and it gets successful, and there's like resonance and authenticity and people are really enjoying it. And then it gets to the point where it's making so much money and its claws are so vast and its influence is so vast that it ceases to become effective and it ceases to become personable and it loses the very heart of it. But within it, it's packed full of individuals who are passionate. But it just becomes so complicated. It gets hard. It's hard to do anything. And I don't know. I don't want that for this club. I don't want that to happen to this club. I don't know how to prevent it yet. But I'm happy to learn lessons along the way.
It is. Look, that is a challenge of any organisation. That is a challenge. So you tend to move towards bureaucracy, and there's reasons for it. You have to have a level of bureaucracy. People need to. If someone contacts you, they need to be responded to. That type of things. These things, there is a sense to it, but certainly, I've been involved, not in the hunting side of things, I must admit. In the shooting side of things, I've been involved in clubs that you've described quite accurately over the years.
Let me go on record by saying that I think, and I'll lean in, I think the ADA is fantastic. I have great respect for the ADA.
Yeah, they've done a lot of work to change themselves from the previous description to a more modern organisation that supports the members. There's no doubt about that. It's got a ways to go, and it's made up of a lot of parts. Lots of different branches and lots of different areas, and they all, a bit different, but they are trying very hard, I think, to.
I think one of the strengths of what you're doing is, and if we kind of look more globally at some of the challenges of hunting clubs, is as soon as you cross borders, as in state borders, then you get into really, it gets complicated, because all of a sudden different rules apply. So you can have a very, very successful localized hunting club, and there's a number of them where they're all within the same state boundary. So everyone's playing on the same rules. Everyone's getting the same opportunities or the ability to access the same opportunities. And then it's up to the individual to pursue those opportunities. As soon as you cross state boundaries, you get into a wholly different type of situation. Yeah. And that's one of the challenges of any club that stretches across the boundaries, because you've got a membership who have work in a different environment. Their idea of hunting is completely different. There's different rules. So I suppose with what you're doing, at least the fact that there's a hunting opportunity that's not necessarily state based is actually going to be attractive to some people, because if you're in WA or wherever it is, you can still have the same opportunity as someone else. It's not state-based opportunity, which is really the great arm wrestle, is the state-based opportunity, and the fact that it's so different. And one of the reasons why we started this podcast was, for many of us, we hunt more interstate than we do intrastate. We cross that border to go hunting, and and for a lot of us, the clock starts ticking once you cross the border. So it's 3 hours, and now I'm going somewhere. So whereas that doesn't necessarily happen if you're localized. I like the idea of what you're doing is offering that opportunity without having those, or at least trying to figure out a way to get around those boundaries that stop people from having, and one of the things that we promote is whilst it's a hassle to go to New South Wales, you will get hunting access if you have an R license and you cross the border. You will get it. How successful it will be, we'll help you try to be successful. But if you do that, you'll get access. It exists. So I quite like the fact that there's an opportunity for people to get an equal level of access, or as equal as you can make it.
Yeah, it's one of the great benefits of the digital age is that it makes everything very, very flat, for good and for bad. And I know that lots of clubs are trying to pivot and take advantage of this. I guess I'm wanting it to be part of the DNA of this club right from the outset, is that it is a very flat membership and everyone is on the same level. And in some ways there are state lines, and in other ways there's not at all, because everyone's just part of the same club, and it's not a Victorian club, it's not a New South Wales club. Now it has restrictions on what it can provide in terms of genuine reason in the states that it has access to, but that's more of that has less to do with the club and more to do with applications that are in process, and already there's things underway to extend the reach of that to include more states. So it's a good thing.
Good luck with that, and hopefully you'll incorporate some New Zealand and other overseas opportunities into the monthly draws for those that are a part of it. So that'll be really good.
Like British Columbia would be nice.
Oh yeah,
Alaska.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
It's a neighbour, sort of. Go the other way. Forget New Zealand for a second. That's a neighbour.
Yeah.
All good. Okay, so huntingtripsaustralia.com.au.
Yeah. No,
has
huntingtrips.com.au.
Huntingtrips.com.au gets you to the page, and you will find links to the club there, or has the club got its own domain?
No, that's the same place for the club. So the website is huntingtrips.com.au, and then huntingtrips.com.au/membership is where you go to see the club.
Excellent. Okay, we'll post those links on here so that people aren't as confused as me. And I think that's been awesome. Also, I'll post the links to your Australian Huntsman YouTube page so people can find you there, and it'll allow people to understand who you are and why you're doing what you do. I think what I've taken away from this evening is we've sort of got to know a little bit more about the guy that's pulling this together for everyone. So appreciate that. It wasn't just a conversation about the clubs and the things you're doing, but I like the general chit chat as well. It gives us a bit more of an idea about who you are. So appreciate you participating in that.
Thank you for letting me come on.
No, that's great, Chris. Before we let you go, outside of all of that, what's on your personal hunting agenda for 2022? Do you have one, or is this just absorbing your life? And hopefully you'll get to show up to all of these giveaway hunts and see how people are going. Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah. Unfortunately not. I won't be going on the giveaway hunts. But I made a commitment to the audience of the YouTube channel that I wanted to do more hunts, film more hunts, and go out and do more hunts. Because while I love doing the other stuff as well, I know that there's a taste for that, and people really enjoy the kind of dynamic nature of that. And so I'm already have a whole bunch of hunts lined up with a whole bunch of outfitters in Victoria mostly, but some in New South Wales as well, that I'm really excited about doing. And what's been amazing and what's been really exciting for me is, again, I'm a person who thrives on my isolation, my own space. But the YouTube channel has been great in that it's forcing people at me. People like email me and saying, "Hey, Chris, I live in blah, 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 blah. Do you want to come out for a hunt with me?" And my immediate instinct is like, no, I like my own space. I want to sit home and read a book or whatever. Go away. Stop. But the part
Who
of me
are you? What do you want?
Yeah, but the part of me that knows better goes, no, Chris, that's a fantastic opportunity to connect with someone. It's good for you. It's good for them. Go do it. So I've got a bunch of hunts lined up with people from the community. I literally, not tomorrow, but on Friday, so it's Wednesday currently. Friday, I'm going and doing a red deer hunt in Northern Vic. And I'm really excited about that with someone I've never met before. And I'm literally going to drive up there. I'm going to leave at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to meet him in the dark and be like, "Hey, how you going, Rob? I'm Chris. Thanks for inviting me on this hunt." And we're gonna hunt red.
I've seen this movie
on this property. Yeah, well, I'm gonna film it too. So it's just gonna I'm excited for it.
Make sure you live stream it so we all know where you end up. Right?
Yeah, you can find the body. Sure.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine.
Rob, I'm sure you're a fantastic guy.
No crazies
you're watching
on social media.
Yeah, no, Rob's gonna be great. I'm confident. Rob, please don't watch this.
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't even know Rob, and I'm defending him already.
Yeah, it's hilarious how we strike up relationships like that with people we don't know. But that's really good. Mark, did you have anything you wanted to close with?
No, look, it's been a great conversation. To your story about Rob, I did that in England, in Wales. No, not Wales, in Yorkshire. So I've done that. I was like, oh, we're meeting these guides at this car park in the dark, in winter, in another country. Oh, okay, sure. Does anyone know who? Does anyone? Yeah, I met him once. Oh, okay, so it's not like we're going to be just going, "Hello, are you a hunting guide?" So anyway,
I'll be the guy in camo or olive or whatever. Yeah.
Can I share this story to close off?
I'm go
conscious of your time, but
no, you're right.
I've done a lot of work over the years with non-for-profits, and there was one particular non-for-profit that I did work for when I was probably 18, 19 years old, and I was doing some volunteer work, and we were going out to Lawn near where Geelong is on the coast during schoolies, and we were helping support the schoolies of the year 12s who were out partying at the end of the year, making sure that they had access to water, making sure that everyone was safe. And so we were going out and we were doing that, and so it attracted a lot of young volunteers. And we were all housed in this single house. And so we're all sharing rooms and getting to know each other. And there's this story about one of my mates who was in this room that was allocated to him, and it was called the princess room. And we're like, why is it called the princess room? And it's this beautiful, big, pink, opulent bed with these kind of like sheer curtains kind of going up to the ceiling. And it was just like, and he was in this bed, and he was allocated this bed. There was another guy who was supposed to stay in the same room and be on this like sofa on the side of the room. And his name was Pete. But Pete was coming later that night. And so we all did the work. We were, looking after these schoolies. And then we all go back to the house, and we hop into bed at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And my mate's in the bed just sleeping. And then he wakes up about 4 in the morning, and there's a tap on his shoulder. And the guy's like, "Hi, I'm Pete." And he's like, hi, Pete. And then Pete just undresses, gets down to his jocks, and slides into the bed next to him. And he's like, "All right, good night."
Like, didn't have time to say the couch is yours, champ.
Yeah, we're like, okay, we're strangers meeting in the night in our jocks in a bed.
Yes, I'm sure it's happened more than once. But you'll be safe. You're the next person doing this in the world that we're aware of. So be safe. Yeah. We'll see you on we'll see you on a red deer success.
Yeah, keen to see that one.
Hopefully.
Some big reds down there.
And if you want early access, join the club, and you'll get it before the rest of the world. Mate, awesome talking to you. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a great conversation. All the best with it, and I'm sure we'll stay in touch.
Thank you, guys. See ya.
Thanks, see you later. Mate.